If you've just started laser engraving, there are a few mistakes that we all make without even realizing it. And the frustrating thing is, you can be using what you think are perfect settings and still get really poor results. I've made all of these mistakes myself, and they are the exact kind of things that slow people down in the early days when they are trying to learn. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the most common mistakes I see beginners making, but more importantly, I'll show you how to fix them so that you can start getting your own consistent results every time. The first one, and probably the most important, is incorrect focus. So if your engraving looks blurry, low resolution, or just out of focus, that is usually the first reason. When I first started, I would always be so excited to engrave that I'd put my item in there, I would loosely focus close enough, then I'd go straight over and assume that it would be absolutely fine. And sometimes it was, but a lot of the time it wasn't, and I wasn't sure what I was doing wrong. Even being slightly out of focus can change the way the laser interacts with that material. So now every time that I engrave anything, you'll see that I always manually focus it, and I make extra care to get those two dots lined up with each other. And if I really want to be extra safe, I might run the autofocus in the software as well. And from my experience, it is well worth taking those extra few seconds just to get that bit right, as it's one of the simplest things you can do for the biggest impact on your final results. The next mistake is not preparing your material correctly. This seems like a really simple one, but it is easily overlooked, and it makes a noticeable difference on your engraving. So if you've got fingerprints, oil, dust, even dirt on your surface, it literally will cause a barrier between the surface of the material engraving and that laser beam contacting it, which could give you diminishing results. I've personally had situations where I have engraved with the right settings, I focused, and it still didn't look right, and it turned out I had fingerprints and smudges on a metallic shiny surface, which was limiting how that laser interacted and literally ruined the engraving and ruined that material. So now if I'm using a material that is susceptible to fingerprints or dirt or dust, I always ensure I give it a clean with a 99.9% IPA alcohol spray, give it a wipe down, and then you are good to go, and it will eliminate all of those inconsistencies. Another really common mistake is using the same material settings on different materials. I know that might sound like an obvious one, but it's easily done. In the beginning, when you're a little bit shy and you don't really know what you're doing, it's easy to think, right, these settings work really well on wood, I'm going to try them on leather. And you'd be okay to think that, but it does not work like that. And that's because woods, leather, metals, they all interact with that wavelength from the laser differently. They're all different types of material, and therefore they all need their own unique set of settings. Now for me personally, whenever I get a new material or a different variant of material, I will always do two things. I'll do a material engraving test to see what the optimum settings are, and I'll also run a test engraving just to make sure that it is good. And it might feel slower at first, but what it will do is it will make things certain. It will stop you wasting more material than spare material, and it will just generally give you a safer ground to stand on. This next one always catches people out, and it is not an obvious one. Even the same material, the same object, but a different color will affect the laser engraving performance. For example, a black coated piece of material might absorb the wavelength from the laser much more than a blue or a red one or a pink one. These things all act very differently with the laser, even if they are the same material. And I quite often have had situations where I've engraved on a particular color, it could be a black, then I've used the same settings on a blue or a purple, and it has barely touched the surface, and I've had to really dial the power up to compensate for that. So a good rule of thumb going forward is to treat all different colors almost as a new material in itself. So run your own material tests on each of those colors, and then save your material settings as and when you work them out. Not framing properly is another big problem that a lot of people make in the beginning, and this is how you can easily end up with engravings that are misaligned, they're not central, they're a bit wonky, lots of things like that. Especially with most lasers these days come with cameras, and you can be so reliant on a camera. But what you have to understand, especially with these kind of galvo lasers behind me, you have a camera which is not centrally over the surface of that laser engraving bed, and it means it's taking a picture from a slight angle from a height, so what you're looking at on the screen isn't always necessarily accurate accurate to what you are going to engrave onto the bed. And that's why it's so critical to always frame your items and look at where they're sitting on the item and then manually adjust. You can either increase or decrease the size, or you can make micro adjustments left and right to get that placement perfect. And to bolt onto this one, another easy mistake to make is you've placed your item, you've put your design on there, you've then framed it, you've adjusted your material on the engraving bed, you've gone back to the actual xTool studio and you forgot to update the photo, and then you might suddenly think to yourself in a moment of weakness, whoa, my design isn't centrally placed, so you'll do it in reference to the picture again, and you might engrave it and it'll be out of place. So always update your picture after you reframe. And this is where a jig will help save you every time. You've seen my self-centering jigs. They always pull a material centrally underneath the laser so you can guarantee the position, and that helps eliminate those small moments where you make those easy mistakes. The last one is skipping your material test when you get a new material. This is probably one of the most important ones, and one that we are all guilty of in the beginning, and it is you just buy the right amount of material to do what you need to do. And you could be doing a customer's job for them where they've asked you to engrave a tumbler or something, and you get one of them, and then you've got so much pressure. Always buy extra materials. So if you're buying pencils, buy extra pencils, pens, buy extra pens, tumblers, buy extra tumblers, and run your material grid array tests in xTool Studio to get those optimum settings. Because if you don't do it, if you try and freestyle it and you go straight onto a customer's item, especially if they provided it to you, you are running a risk of ruining their item and also just putting yourself through that nervous motion. So I recommend always doing material engraving tests. It's an easy habit to get into. It's a really easy thing to do, and check out the tutorials on my channel if you want to learn how to do it, and it will allow you to save your settings, and then in the future it will speed up your process because you've already got your tested settings ready to go. If you can avoid all of these mistakes and learn from what I've said today, you'll quickly find that your knowledge, your experience and your abilities will grow very quickly, and you'll get the basics right. You know what the story says, you need to build that house on a strong foundation, not on sand. Well, that is your strong foundation right there. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. If you would like to support my channel and allow me to continue making these kind of videos, feel free to become an L3D supporter. And also, if you're looking to buy a laser, we have affiliate links down below in the description which you can use, which will support the channel and give us a little something back. If you've got any questions at all, drop them in the comments below. I try to answer all of them. And if you're looking to buy any of the jigs that you see in any of my videos, check out the link to the shop below. But thank you once again for watching. Have an absolutely wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.